If you want to know everything about complex numbers, stick with me for the next 5 days and I'll show you how. Hi, my name is Dr. Jide from Advantage Tutoring, and thank you for joining me on these new lessons on complex numbers. Okay, so we'll start with this equation: x squared plus 1 equals 0. All right, now if we were to find the roots of this equation or find what x is, all right, what do? We say x squared equals -1. All right, then x is the square root of -1, right? Now, what's the square root of -1? This does not exist. The square root of -1 does not exist. So to make things easier, mathematicians decided to represent this number by something called I. Now, what I represents is an imaginary number. It doesn't really exist, but to make things easier for mathematicians, they decided to represent the square root of -1 by I. All right, so the square root of any negative number can be written in terms of this I. For example, the square root of -4 is, remember, we could write the square root of -4 as the square root of 4 times the square root of -1. So what's the square root of 4? 2. What's the square root of -1? I. All right, so the square root of -4 is 2i. To make things easier, that's why square root of -1 is denoted by I. All right, now this I is called the imaginary number. All right, so a complex number is made up of a real part and an imaginary part. What does this mean? A real part is 3, 2, 5, 4, numbers that you know, all right, 2.5, whatever it is. Imaginary part is, it always has I there. So whenever you see a number with I located next to it, you know it's an imaginary number. So for example, we could write 2 plus 3i. This is a complex number consisting of a real part, 2, and an imaginary part, 3i. All right? 3 minus 4i. 3 is the real number and -4 is the imaginary number. All right? So a complex number is always written as a combination of a real part and an imaginary part. All right? And we've also seen how you can write the square root of any negative number in terms of I. All right? One more thing. Let's see. So if I is the square root of -1, right? I squared is what? Square root of -1 squared, which is what? -1. So I squared is what? -1. All right? What is I to the power of 3? I to the power of 3 is, you can rewrite I to the power of 3 as I squared dot I. All right? But you already know I squared as what? -1. So -1 times I, which is what? -I. I to the power of 4 is, you can rewrite this as I to the power of 3 times I. I to the power of 3, you already know it as what? -I, right? -I times I. So this is what? -I squared, which is 1. All right? So because I squared is what? -1. So -1 will become +1. So from there, you can keep going. So I have a homework for you. In the comments, write from what I5 to I10 represent. All right? Thank you for joining me on today's video. Please make sure you subscribe to this channel so that you can get more days. Because remember, we are doing 5 days of complex numbers. All right, and I'll see you in day 2. Thank you.